And the whole thing here is about this information, as the tagline is how to tell for people with epilepsy by people with epilepsy. So this is really the end of 3 years research, finding out from people what their stories are, how they go about disclosure, and then producing educational resources in the way of an app, a website, and a booklet, all giving the same information, but it's all helping people learn how to disclose. Now, for some people, that is not a problem. They're very comfortable about telling people that they have epilepsy. But for people who are perhaps newly diagnosed, and they are coming to terms with A, having epilepsy, what it means to them, learning how to manage it, they become important issues. And then they get to the stage, well, how do I tell somebody, a potential boyfriend, a potential girlfriend, somebody at work, or even if they have children, if they're parents, how do they tell their children? As I say, for many of you who have perhaps had epilepsy or are involved in epilepsy for a long period of time, you've already cracked that. But if you're newly diagnosed, or for some people, it's a new situation has arisen and you want information perhaps to learn how to do it. So that really is what this whole How to Tell project is about. The origins of this perhaps really came from a survey that was carried out, I skipped a slide there, a survey that was carried out by Epilepsy Ireland's grant. Okay. No. This one. Thanks. It was a survey carried out by Epilepsy Ireland, and that was in 2012. But in that survey, and maybe some of you took part in it, it said that 29% of people with epilepsy don't feel comfortable telling their family and friends, and a higher proportion of people with epilepsy said they didn't feel comfortable telling their employer and their work colleagues. So, as I say, that was kind of a survey result in terms of a measurement of the scale of how comfortable or uncomfortable people felt with disclosing about their epilepsy. In relation to some of the actual information that would be available and still is available, ahead would be one information source, and that's really for higher education and employment. So that's for people who perhaps as adults are facing employment, and that they talk about disclosure. But that's for all sorts of disability in relation to disclosure. And it focuses mostly on employment issues and going to college, but is a very good Irish information source of information. But it's, as I said, it's general disability, whereas when we come to looking for what's available in relation to epilepsy specific, then Epilepsy Ireland on their own website have a whole sort of page in relation to disclosure on epilepsy. Again, a lot of this kind of angle and the emphasis on this is on employment and work-related issues. So again, both with the Ahead and with the Epilepsy Ireland webpage, all very valuable and important information in relation to how to tell, but its main focus is really on employment issues. So that raised the question, really, what was actually missing? And in many ways, one of the bits of information that was missing was in relation to how to tell in terms of the process of telling somebody about their actual epilepsy. So it wasn't just what are my rights, what is the actual factual information, all of which is important. But the piece that we felt was missing in that whole piece of information was how do you go about telling the actual process. And we weren't talking just about work, but maybe being at work and telling your work colleague, telling your friends when you're out socializing, so it was that kind of situation. Maybe telling somebody more in an intimate kind of one-to-one relationship. Again, perhaps being in school and being in college, telling in that situation. Or else, I'm not talking here about teaching, but basically telling children, you as an adult, telling children about your epilepsy. So they were the sort of situations we really wanted to find out, not from the books, not from the experts in terms of the clinicians. We wanted to find out from you, the experts, i.e. people who have experience, direct experience of telling people about their epilepsy. So our main focus really was on how do people tell it, and in all sorts of different life situations. Things are getting better, but I think globally there's a recognition that there's still an element of the problems. It's difficult because you don't know what kind of reaction the person you're telling is going to have. And some people have had perhaps poor experiences or poor reactions. Some of you will have had very excellent reactions, but there's still globally, there are still issues. And this was back in 2003. And I would like to think some things have improved, but nevertheless, I think there are some perhaps residues of difficulties and challenges in actually telling somebody you have epilepsy. To that end, the global organisation in relation to supporting and campaign against epilepsy, you probably won't see this, I apologise, the type is actually quite small, but they were kind of suggesting one of the things that's actually needed are educational and social interventions. And so again, that is perhaps what the host project was about. It was about developing an educational resource so that people could learn themselves when they needed it, and in a timely fashion, to learn how to manage, how to tell somebody about their epilepsy. More recently, and this would come from the Institute of Medicine in the United States, what they basically were saying is that we as researchers, if we actually are going to develop educational resources or indeed carry out research, not only should we develop self-management educational resources and tools, but also, very importantly, that we should involve the people for whom our target audience is. So involving the public, involving people with epilepsy. And there's a big, I suppose, emphasis and recognition of the importance of involving the people for whom this is intended to actually be involved in research, and not necessarily always to be the clinicians and the doctors and the nurses leading the research, but it is also to address what are the actual needs, the real needs, the important needs in relation to managing your epilepsy. So they are in some ways some of the background to the particular study. So this all led to research, and it was a study carried out, started in 2014, and it was funded by Epilepsy Ireland and the Health Research Board. So it's literally, guys, just completed, just finished. And this is almost my celebratory bottle of champagne launch. This is very sad of the researcher, but it is very important day insofar as this is the first day that it's officially being launched. So the whole purpose of the study really was to try and get evidence, and to get good evidence. And the evidence we're talking about here is the evidence of people with epilepsy in relation to how they tell other people about their epilepsy. I need to concentrate that I'm in the adult room, because Veronica and the other group over in the other room are dealing with children and children disclosure. So this is really an adult perspective, and by adult I mean over the age of 18. So this is what the actual study involved. We used a particular research methodology which allows us to ask people how did you go about telling somebody about your epilepsy, and to build it up from people's experiences. So we asked them, how did you tell? How did you tell your boyfriend, girlfriend? How did you tell family? How did you tell children? How did you tell at work? What hints or top tips would you give? What would you advise that you don't tell? When did you tell? All of those sort of situations. So we mapped out effectively all of people's experiences, and people who gave us the information were very experienced insofar as they would have had epilepsy, some for 20 years. So they had told, and they had told in lots of different occasions and situations. We had a project steering committee with research, but importantly, we had two people with epilepsy who were very, very important in helping, guiding us in saying, yeah, that's what you need to do. You know, you need to go this way. that way. And because of that, and because they knew so much about epilepsy and the whole community, they were able to point us in directions where, you know, we would get good information. In total, we interviewed 49 people with epilepsy, and they came from all different life situations. We had a balance between men and women. We had a balance in terms of age. We had a cohort of young people who would have been just over 18, and we had people who were older in relation to developing epilepsy in older life, around 60s. So we had the whole age spectrum. People were employed, people were unemployed. People were going in long-term situations, family situations. Other people had children. So we had the complete spectrum. Equally, we had people with different forms and presentations of epilepsy. So we interviewed them, and then we analysed, basically looking to see what were the common patterns of what people, what strategies they used in terms of telling. So that was the research bit. And then once we got those findings, what we did is we converted those findings into the educational resources. We converted them into an app, we converted them onto the Epilepsy Ireland website, and we converted it onto a booklet. So it's the same information in 3 different formats, depending on what your preferred choice is. So ultimately, very importantly about this particular study, it's giving practical advice. It's how to, but it's practical advice. And it's really for people with epilepsy. But the story, the practical advice is coming from people with epilepsy. So what I'd like to do really is to, I suppose in some ways, just let you know it's out there, it's been launched. But equally kind of just to show you perhaps how to navigate your way around it. As I suppose it's also important that when you read it, just to know that it's actually come from a lot of work and analysis and interviews on the experiences of 49 people. And we did see kind of common patterns and common messages coming out. So it's not just my word or a group of other people around a table. It's coming from the people who participated in this study. So it just went live on midday on Thursday, so this is what it looks like. So if you go onto the Epilepsy Ireland website, and you will see down on the left, you'll see the tab for how to tell. And that is effectively the homepage of it. So you get it on the Epilepsy Ireland website. It's available in a booklet form, and it's available as an app. So effectively you can download it, whether it's Google or Apple, the iTunes, you can download it from the actual website page there. How many of you would use an app? Hands up, a few of you. Okay. When we were testing the app, one of the things we actually found is some people said, oh, because there's little video clips on the app. And so some people were kind of saying, oh, I can't hear what's being said on the video. So we looked at that, and we actually found that where that happened, the video was working fine. It was the phone settings, and the people had their phone settings turned to mute. So just to be sure, when you, if you do choose to use an app and you are going to download it, just check your, basically the setting of your phone is set to hear it. So if you want to look at the How to Tell, the Epilepsy Ireland website, you can either print it off as a booklet, or you can actually download it as an app, or then you can just work on it through the website itself. It's the same information. It depends what way you prefer to access it. So this is what the smartphone app, what it looks like. And this is the actual booklet. You can download it from your desktop printer. And to that point, we have it as an A4 version. Now, Peter very kindly got it converted into a little booklet. Effectively, it's the same information. But if you don't have this to hand and you want to give somebody to read and you've got access to a printer, you can print it down for yourself because it's accessible and it's available for you there. So that's how you get it. Website, app, booklet. So when you go into it, the information it's going to give you, how to become comfortable with your epilepsy. This was something people told us, that it's very difficult to tell somebody about your epilepsy until you know about your own epilepsy and how it affects you, until you actually feel comfortable with it yourself. So that's one aspect in terms of the process of telling other people about your epilepsy that people told us was important. Understand why you tell, why it's important, but also, I suppose, deciding, weighing up who are you going to tell and why you should tell them, when is the best place, all of those sort of things. Decision making, it's complex decision making, and you're weighing up what's the advantage of telling, maybe I won't tell, when's the best time. Using different opportunities, either in a social scene or whether it's at work and you're at an interview and you've got a formal interview. Or some people told us that in relation to opportunities for telling, if they were going out with somebody who they thought might be interested as a potential partner, they may use their tablets. And they took their tablets at a meal. And they knew then the person might say, why are you taking those tablets? And that was the icebreaker into saying, well, I'm taking them because I've got epilepsy. So some people used taking their medications as a trigger or as a cue. Now, these were all very simple, practical ideas, but it actually helped people in relation to identifying opportunities to tell. Telling people depending who they are, so we have that for either a work situation, family situation, or telling children. The other aspect people identified as important was telling the message to make it ordinary. In many ways, in terms of telling people about your epilepsy, one of the things they wanted to do was not to interfere with the relationship, whether it was a friendship or a work relationship or whatever. They really wanted to maintain the relationship. They wanted people to have enough information to let them know, but they didn't want it to interfere with who I am. I am Naomi. I'm not epilepsy. I am an individual. So they really kind of wanted that, and they gave us some practical tips in relation to how to make the message ordinary, and then dealing with reactions. You know, sometimes you tell somebody something and you get that silence. You know, what do you do? And sometimes they would say, just leave it, walk away, let that silence, because maybe they will want to think about it and come back. But it's about knowing what are the possible ranges of reactions. And the people who we interviewed gave us different examples. So using the how to tell, if you click on any of these tabs, it will take you into another page, which drills down. So you decide what's important to you, what you want to look at. If you've got loads of time, you can go through it step by step and know what's there. But equally, if you want to, I want to find out about telling children quickly. How do I tell my child? Then you can zoom in to whatever is particularly relevant to you. I'm just going to take you into one page, and that is telling in the different scenarios. So this is telling what we call formally, whether it's a college or whether or not it's your employer. Telling a child, and then the other would be the informal, telling housemates, partners, work colleagues, friends and families. So in this is the how to tell page. And one of the things we found in terms of knowing what sentence, how to construct that sentence of saying I have epilepsy. And what we found was people broke it into three parts. They said, I have epilepsy. Then they gave a message of reassurance. It's nothing to worry about. And then they gave practical advice of what they wanted the other person to do for their epilepsy. Not for epilepsy in general, but for their personal epilepsy. And this structure of the sentence, I have epilepsy, message of reassurance, what I want you to do, really was a common thread throughout all of the people that we actually interviewed. And it was quite amazing because we kind of said, well, who told you that? And they said, no, but it was in fact a recurrent pattern across all of the disclosures. So if you break into any one of these tabs, then you will get into another page. And here I have friends and partners. So each of the pages is structured with the writing of the advice. Then we have quotations from people with epilepsy. And then when you click on here, you will actually have a video of people with epilepsy and their particular advice in relation to telling friends and family. So the structure of each page is the same. General advice, quotes, and then an actual video. As with any study, this was done, and there were 49 people who participated. But these people were Irish. Now, we didn't purposefully limit people because of their cultures, etc., but they were actually Irish people. So we don't know whether or not people from different cultures or different backgrounds would have the same way of telling and disclosing. I don't know whether Irish people have a different style. Any Australians here? No, I mean, we have a stereotypical idea, don't we, about certain cultures being very brash and upfront, etc. So all I can say is we don't know here in our particular study, everyone who participated was in fact Irish. As I said, we didn't set out that way. It's just they're the people who volunteered to take part. The other thing is that this tool is really a general self-management support. We don't know everybody's individual situation, so literally you would have to take it and see whether or not it was relevant to you and how you could apply it to your own situation. So it's just very much about giving you general principles to think about rather than absolute rules to follow. It was a research team, and we have an awful lot of people to thank. Firstly, the participants, who were so generous with their time and telling their stories about how they told others about their epilepsy. We have a lot of people from Epilepsy Ireland, and I'm delighted to see Honor Broderick, who was very helpful, but there were other people from Epilepsy Ireland as well. And the app design, we've different companies, the app design people, the website production, the booklet, the film. But also, really, we couldn't have continued with this study without the help and support and warmth of feeling from Epilepsy Ireland staff, and obviously Peter Murphy. He's leading the team, but he's a great team to lead. In terms of reading more, we have published a study on the first phase, becoming comfortable. So if you are interested and you want a little bit more about the research background, it's available in Epilepsy and Behaviour Journal, which was published earlier this year. And then, interestingly enough, the paper was actually selected by the American Epilepsy Foundation, and they really liked the article, so they basically took it and published on their website as well. So the Americans are finding it interesting and relevant to their experiences. Thank you very, very much.